During a storm, the unlikely meeting between a humble young man and a boy confined to his wheelchair forever changes the fate of two families. The act of courage that begins in the mud awakens bonds, reveals truths and changes lives forever. If you like stories like this, watch until the end, subscribe to this channel, and leave a comment telling us where you're listening from. The rain poured down on Willowbrook Park as if the sky had opened in a fury. Gabriel Sterling ran along Professor Reynolds Avenue, his blue Grandmart supermarket shirt already drenched, clinging to his slender 14-year-old body. The Nike sneakers he had saved for months to buy made a squelching sound with each step on the flooded asphalt. He should have taken the bus earlier. Grandma Mary, his grandmother, was waiting for her blood pressure medication, and he had promised to arrive before 7. The double shift at the supermarket had stretched longer than expected, and now he faced one of the worst storms Silverton had seen in months. The wind whipped the park's trees with a violence that made Gabriel lower his head and quicken his pace. Lightning cut across the dark sky, momentarily illuminating the urban landscape that stretched beyond the green confines. It was October, a time of intense rains in the Silverton metropolitan area, but this storm seemed to have come straight out of the apocalypse. As he was almost passing the main entrance to the park, something made Gabriel stop. A sound different from the deafening noise of the rain and traffic. It was like a muffled cry, almost imperceptible, but it somehow managed to cut through all that sonic confusion and reach his ears. Gabriel looked towards the park. The rain had turned the dirt paths into veritable rivers of mud, and visibility was terrible. But there was something there near one of the playgrounds. A small dark shape moving strangely. He approached a few meters, trying to see better through the curtain of water falling from the sky. His heart pounded when he finally identified what he was seeing. It was a child in a wheelchair, completely alone, in the middle of that infernal storm. The wheelchair was stuck in the mud, and the boy couldn't move. His clothes were soaked, and even from a distance Gabriel could see that he was trembling violently, either from cold or fear, perhaps both. The boy looked about 8 or 9 years old, with dark hair matted to his forehead, and he was gripping the arms of the chair tightly, as if it were his only anchor in that moment of despair. Gabriel looked around, searching for a responsible adult. Where was the person who should have been taking care of this child? How could someone just abandon a helpless boy in the middle of a storm like that? It was then that he saw a woman a few meters ahead, sheltered under an awning, completely oblivious to what was happening. She was glued to her cell phone, gesturing animatedly, clearly engrossed in a conversation she considered more important than anything else around her. The rain created a natural barrier between her and the park, and it was obvious she had no idea of the danger the child was in. Gabriel tried to get her attention. "Hey, ma'am!" he shouted, but his voice was lost in the roar of the storm. He waved his arms, but the woman had her back to him and was completely absorbed in her call. At that moment, 3 people ran past on the sidewalk, each with their own concerns. A man in a suit carrying a briefcase, a young woman with an umbrella barely holding up against the wind, and a young man on a bike pedaling furiously, trying to escape the rain. All of them passed right by without even looking in the direction of the park. "Please, somebody!" Gabriel shouted again, this time directing his plea to the passers-by. "There's a child stuck here." But no one stopped. No one looked. It was as if the whole world had decided that child simply didn't exist, that his desperate situation was invisible to everyone except Gabriel. The boy in the wheelchair had stopped moving so much. This was a bad sign. Gabriel knew from his own experience of working exposed to the elements that when someone stops shivering from cold, it can mean they are entering hypothermia. And if that were the case, every second counted. He looked once more at the woman on the phone, who remained completely oblivious to the situation. He looked at the street, where cars sped by, raising even more water from the clogged drains. He looked at the boy, who had now lowered his head and seemed to be losing consciousness. There was no more time to wait for someone else to do something. If Gabriel didn't act at that moment, perhaps no one else would. Without a second thought, he jumped the low fence separating the sidewalk from the park and ran towards the child. His sneakers immediately sank into the thick mud, which reached almost to his ankles. Each step was a struggle against the soaked earth that seemed to want to suck his feet down. "Hey, buddy, are you okay?" he shouted as he approached, trying to make his voice sound calm despite the desperation he felt. The boy slowly lifted his head. His eyes were red. Gabriel couldn't tell if it was from tears or the rain beating on his face. When their gazes met, Gabriel felt something break inside his chest. It was the look of someone who had lost all hope, of someone who was used to being ignored, invisible to the world. I can't get out of here," the boy whispered, his voice almost swallowed by the sound of the rain. Gabriel reached the chair and immediately began to assess the situation. The wheels were completely buried in the mud, and the chair seemed to be sinking deeper with each moment. He tried to push it from behind, but his feet slipped and he almost fell face first into the ground. "It's okay, we'll get you out of here," Gabriel said, trying to convey a confidence he didn't feel. "What's your name?" "Lucas," the boy replied, his teeth chattering from the cold. "I'm Gabriel." "Lucas, I'm going to get you out of this chair and take you to a safe place, okay?" Lucas nodded weakly. Gabriel could see that the boy was wearing expensive clothes, branded sneakers that were now completely ruined by the mud. He had the pale, delicate skin of someone who spent a lot of time indoors, and his arms were thin, clearly lacking muscle strength in his legs. Gabriel tried once more to move the chair, pulling and pushing with all his might. But it was useless. The mud had created a kind of vacuum around the wheels, and the harder he tried, the deeper the chair seemed to sink. It was then that he made a decision that would change everything. "Lucas, I'm going to have to carry you, okay?" "I promise I'll be careful." The boy hesitated for a moment, clearly unaccustomed to the idea of being touched by strangers. But the cold and fear were greater than any apprehension, and he nodded again. Gabriel crouched down and, with extreme care, slipped one arm under Lucas's legs and the other behind his back. The boy was lighter than he expected, but carrying someone through the mud in a torrential rain was proving much more difficult than he had imagined. With each step, Gabriel felt his sneakers sink deeper. The mud clung to his legs, making every movement a battle. His cell phone, which was in his front pants pocket, slipped and fell into the mud with a wet, definitive sound. His uniform shirt, already soaked, tore on a low branch as Gabriel tried to dodge a tree. But none of that mattered. What mattered was Lucas, who was trembling in his arms, trusting him to get him out of that situation. Gabriel could feel the boy's heart beating fast against his chest, and that only made him quicken his pace. Finally, after what seemed like hours, but was probably only a few minutes, Gabriel managed to reach a concrete bench under a cluster of large trees, near the playground. The spot offered some protection from the rain, though it wasn't completely dry yet. He carefully placed Lucas on the bench and immediately took off his supermarket jacket, which he had worn under his shirt. It was wet, but it could still offer some protection against the cold wind cutting across the park. "Here," Gabriel said, wrapping Lucas in the jacket. "This will help a little." Lucas looked at him with an expression Gabriel would never forget. It was gratitude mixed with astonishment, as if he couldn't believe someone had actually stopped to help him. As if for the first time in a long time someone had truly seen him. "Thank you," Lucas whispered, his voice still trembling from the cold. Gabriel sat next to him on the bench, sharing what little body heat he still had. Both were covered in mud from head to toe, soaked and shivering, but at least they were safe. It was at that moment that they heard hurried footsteps approaching and a desperate male voice shouting, "Lucas! Lucas, where are you?" A tall, elegant man emerged from the curtain of rain, running desperately towards the bench where Gabriel and Lucas were. His expensive clothes were completely soaked, his dark hair matted to his forehead, and his eyes revealed a panic that Gabriel immediately recognized. It was the look of someone who had lost the most precious thing in the world. "Lucas!" the man shouted, and Gabriel could see relief flooding his face as he finally located his son. "My God, Lucas, I thought you—" The man stopped abruptly when he saw the scene before him. His son, covered in mud and wrapped in a complete stranger's jacket, sitting next to a teenager, who was equally dirty and soaked. For a moment he seemed unable to process what he was seeing. "Dad," Lucas said, his voice still weak but full of emotion. "He saw me. He saved me." Those words struck Richard Middleton's heart like lightning. He approached slowly, as if fearing the scene might vanish if he made any sudden movement. His eyes went from Lucas to Gabriel, trying to understand how that boy had ended up there, in the middle of the storm, taking care of his son. "You," "You were with him the whole time?" Richard asked, his voice trembling with contained emotion. Gabriel shook his head. "No, sir. I was passing by on the street when I saw him stuck in the mud near the playground. His wheelchair had gotten bogged down and he couldn't move. I tried to call someone, but—" Gabriel hesitated, not wanting to sound accusatory. "No one stopped to help." Richard closed his eyes for a moment, as if absorbing the magnitude of what had happened. When he opened them again, there were tears mixed with the rain on his face. "Marina," he murmured, more to himself than to the others. Marina was with him. She was supposed to be taking care of him. Gabriel remembered the woman he had seen on the phone. "There's a lady over there near the awning, talking on her cell phone. She didn't notice when the storm got worse." Richard's face hardened for an instant, but quickly softened when he looked at Lucas again. Nothing else mattered beyond the fact that his son was safe. "What's your name?" Richard asked, addressing Gabriel. "Gabriel Sterling, sir." "Gabriel," Richard repeated, as if memorizing the name. "Do you have any idea what you did? What could have happened if you hadn't stopped?" Gabriel lowered his eyes, still processing everything that had occurred. His sneakers were ruined, probably beyond repair. His work shirt was torn and dirty. His cell phone had been lost in the mud and was surely destroyed. Grandma Mary must be worried, waiting for the medication he still hadn't bought. "I just did what anyone would do," Gabriel murmured. "No," Richard said firmly. "Anyone wouldn't. You saw several people pass by here, didn't you? And none of them stopped." Lucas stirred on the bench, pulling Gabriel's jacket closer to his body. "Dad, I yelled for help, but it was like I was invisible. And then he appeared," he said, looking at Gabriel with admiration. "He carried me here and gave me his jacket. He took care of me." Richard knelt in front of Gabriel, meeting his gaze. "Gabriel, I have no words to thank you for what you did. You saved my son, and I will never forget that." Gabriel felt uncomfortable with all the attention. He wasn't used to praise or recognition. In his life, gestures of kindness were natural, taught by Grandma Mary since he was little. They weren't something that deserved reward or special thanks. "You don't need to thank me, sir." "Richard," the man interrupted. "My name is Richard Middleton. And please let me at least offer you a ride. It's raining heavily and both of you need to get out of this rain." Gabriel hesitated. Accepting favors from strangers wasn't something he did often. Grandma Mary had taught him to be independent, not to rely on others' kindness. But the rain really was intense, and he still needed to buy his grandmother's medication. "I need to stop at a pharmacy before going home," Gabriel said. "My grandmother is waiting for her medicine." "Of course," Richard said immediately. "We can stop wherever you need. Do you live far from here?" "In Willow Creek," Gabriel replied, and he noticed a shadow pass over Richard's face. It wasn't disdain, but rather surprise. Willow Creek was in the south side of Silverton, a very different area from Elmwood Heights where they were now. Richard helped Lucas get up from the bench, taking care not to hurt him. Gabriel returned the jacket, but Richard gestured for him to keep it. "Keep it for now. Both of you are still wet." The three walked slowly towards the park's parking lot, where Richard had left his car. It was a new model black BMW, which contrasted drastically with everything in Gabriel's life. He had never been in a car like that. During the drive to the pharmacy, Lucas didn't stop talking. It was as if the scare of the storm had broken some barrier, and now he was eager to connect with Gabriel. "Do you work at the supermarket?" Lucas asked, noticing Gabriel's uniform. "Yes, I do. On weekends and after school." "What school do you go to?" "Oakwood High School in the neighborhood." Richard watched the conversation in the rearview mirror, noticing how much more animated Lucas was than he had been in months. Since the accident that had left him in a wheelchair 2 years prior, the boy had become increasingly withdrawn, avoiding contact with other children and teenagers. When they arrived at the pharmacy, Gabriel started to get out of the car, but Richard stopped him. "Let me help with the medication," he offered. "No need." "Mr. Middleton, I have the money." Gabriel took a small plastic envelope from his pocket, where he kept the bills and coins he had set aside for the purchase. They were mostly 50-cent coins and a few crumpled $5 bills. Richard quickly calculated that it couldn't be much money. "Please," Richard insisted gently. "Here's the least I can do." Gabriel hesitated again. Accepting money was different from accepting a ride. Grandma Mary had always said they weren't charity for anyone, that they had their dignity. "I work for my money. Mr. Middleton, I don't need help. Richard saw the determination in the boy's eyes and felt a wave of respect. Even young Gabriel had solid principles and self-pride. He decided not to insist at that moment. All right, Gabriel. I respect that. Gabriel went into the pharmacy and returned a few minutes later with a small bag. Throughout the journey to Willow Creek, Lucas continued to ask questions about Gabriel's life, about school, about his dreams and plans for the future. Gabriel spoke about how he liked to study, especially math and science, but that he needed to work to help at home. He told about Grandma Mary, who had raised him alone after his parents passed away when he was little, and how she had been sick lately, which worried him a lot. When they finally arrived at the address Gabriel had provided, Richard looked around with new eyes. The houses were simple, many unfinished. The streets had no asphalt in some sections. It was a world completely different from his own. But there was life there, community, people looking out for each other. It's here, Gabriel said, pointing to a small but well-maintained house, painted light blue. Thank you for the ride, Mr. Middleton. Gabriel, Richard said before the boy got out of the car, I would like to speak with your grandmother, if she allows. I want to personally thank her for raising such a special grandson. Gabriel was surprised by the request, but saw no problem. Of course, she'll be happy to meet you. The three got out of the car and headed to the house door. Gabriel rang the doorbell and soon a female voice answered from inside. Gabriel? Is that you, my son? It's me, Grandma. And I brought some people I'd like you to meet. The door opened, revealing a grey-haired lady, short and thin, but with eyes full of life and kindness. Grandma Mary Sterling must have been 70, but she moved with agility. Her face, marked by time and hardships, lit up when she saw Gabriel, but soon filled with concern as she noticed his condition. My goodness, Gabriel. What happened to you? You're all dirty and wet. It's okay, Grandma. I just got wet in the rain. I brought your medicine, Gabriel said, handing her the bag. Grandma Mary then noticed Richard and Lucas standing behind Gabriel. Her expression became curious but welcoming. Grandma, these are Mr. Richard and Lucas, Gabriel said. I helped Lucas today, and they brought me home because of the rain. Grandma Mary looked from Gabriel to Richard, then to Lucas in the wheelchair, and immediately understood there was much more to the story than Gabriel was telling. Come in. Please, she said, opening the door wider. Don't stand out there in the rain. I'll make some hot coffee for you. Richard hesitated for a moment. He didn't want to intrude, but there was something in Grandma Mary's natural hospitality that made him accept the invitation. It would be an honor, he said. When they entered the house, Richard could see how simple it was, but impeccably clean and organized. There were few pieces of furniture, but each item was in its correct place. Photos of Gabriel at various ages decorated a small shelf, showing his journey since childhood. Please sit down, Grandma Mary said, gesturing towards the small sofa in the living room. Gabriel, go take a shower and put on dry clothes. You'll get sick like that. As Gabriel headed to the bathroom, Grandma Mary turned to Richard with a penetrating gaze, the kind only experienced grandmothers can have. Now tell me the whole story, she said, crossing her arms, and don't try to fool me, because I know my grandson, and I know when he's done something important. Richard felt a pang in his chest hearing Grandma Mary's firm tone. There was something in her demeanor that reminded him of his own mother, a woman who also didn't accept half-truths and knew how to read people like open books. He looked at Lucas, who was clearly anxious to recount everything that had happened. Grandma Mary, Richard began, choosing his words carefully. Your grandson saved my son's life today. Saved him? How? She asked, her eyebrows furrowing with concern. Lucas stepped forward, unable to contain his emotion. Grandma Mary, can I call you Grandma? I was stuck in the park in the mud and no one saw me. No one stopped to help me. I was very scared and very cold, and I thought I'd be there forever. Then Gabriel appeared and carried me to safety. He gave me his jacket and stayed with me until my dad arrived. Grandma Mary slowly sat on the armchair next to the sofa, processing the information. Her eyes filled with tears, but she held them back with the strength of someone who had faced many storms in life. And where was the person who was supposed to be taking care of you? She asked, directing a penetrating look at Richard. Richard lowered his head, clearly embarrassed. The caregiver was distracted. She was on the phone and didn't notice when the storm got worse. I was in a meeting and arrived at the park after the agreed time. Grandma Mary murmured, and in that simple sound, Richard could hear a whole judgment about his life priorities. At that moment, Gabriel returned from his room, wearing a clean t-shirt and simple, clean jeans. His dark hair was still damp from the shower, and he carried a towel in his hands. "Grandma, Mr. Middleton was very kind. He brought me home in the rain," Gabriel said, clearly trying to divert attention from any negative aspect of the story. "I know, my son. We were just talking about what happened today," Grandma Mary said, gesturing for Gabriel to sit beside her. Richard observed the interaction between grandmother and grandson, noticing how Gabriel automatically positioned himself protectively near Grandma Mary, and how she instinctively ran her hand through his hair, a gesture of maternal affection that spoke of years of mutual care. "Grandma Mary," Richard said, "I would like to offer some way to thank Gabriel for what he did, perhaps—" "No," she interrupted firmly. "My grandson didn't do anything expecting a reward. He did it because that's how I raised him, to help those in need." Gabriel remained quiet, but Richard could see that he deeply respected his grandmother's stance. At the same time, he noticed how the boy's eyes discreetly darted to a corner of the room where there was a stack of bills on a small table. "I understand and respect that," Richard said, "but allow me at least to get to know you better. Lucas needs more friends, and it seems he and Gabriel got along well." "It's true," Lucas said animatedly. "Gabriel, do you like games? I have a PlayStation 5 and lots of cool games." Gabriel looked at his grandmother, as if asking for permission to answer. "I don't have much time for games," he said. "I study in the morning, work in the afternoon, and at night I help Grandma at home." "You work every day?" Richard asked, surprised. "Full weekends and 3 afternoons during the week," Gabriel explained, "at the Grand Mart supermarket near the school." Richard quickly did some mental math. If Gabriel works so much, he must be earning minimum wage, perhaps a little less for being underage. For a family of 2, with the medical expenses of an elderly lady, it must be very difficult. "And do you plan to continue studying?" Richard asked. Gabriel's eyes lit up. "I really want to go to college. Engineering, if I can. I really like math and physics, but—" He hesitated, looking again at the stack of bills. "But what?" Richard gently insisted. "But first I need to take care of Grandma. She's not well and the medicines are expensive. And there's also the house to finish paying off." Grandma Mary coughed lightly, and Gabriel immediately got up to get a glass of water for her. Richard noticed how attentive the boy always was to his grandmother's needs, how he had developed a natural protective instinct. "Grandma Mary," Richard said when Gabriel returned with the water, "may I ask what kind of health problems you have?" "High blood pressure, diabetes, and my heart isn't good," she answered directly. "The doctors at the clinic say I need more expensive medicines, but we do what we can with what we have." Gabriel held his grandmother's hand, and Richard could see the concern in his eyes. It was clear that Grandma Mary's health was the boy's biggest worry, much greater than any personal ambition. "Have you ever thought about seeing a private cardiologist?" Richard asked. "Mr. Middleton," Gabriel said politely, "private consultations cost more than my weekly salary. And if I need some more complicated exams—" He didn't finish the sentence, but the meaning was clear. It was a luxury they simply couldn't afford. Richard looked around the house again, this time paying more attention to the details. The small old refrigerator in the corner of the kitchen, the walls that needed a new coat of paint, the tube television that must have been more than 10 years old. But he also noticed the school books carefully organized on an improvised shelf, the well-tended plants in the window, and several photos showing Gabriel receiving certificates for good performance at school. "Does Gabriel get good grades in school?" Richard asked. "The best student in his class," Grandma Mary said with evident pride. "Always has been since he was little. The teachers keep saying he has the potential to be anything he wants." "Grandma," Gabriel murmured, clearly embarrassed by the praise. "It's true, my son. You are intelligent, hard-working, and have a good heart. Your parents would be proud." Richard noticed how Gabriel lowered his eyes when Grandma Mary mentioned his parents. It was clearly a sensitive topic. "Gabriel," Lucas said suddenly, "could you teach me math? I hate math, but you make it seem easy." Gabriel smiled, the first time Richard had seen him truly smile since they met. "Math is easy when you understand the logic behind it. It's like putting together a puzzle. See? Lucas said to his father, "I've never heard anyone talk about math like that." Richard observed the interaction between the two boys and began to form an idea in his head. Lucas had spent the last 2 years avoiding all social contact, preferring to isolate himself in his room with video games and books. But with Gabriel he was animated, asking questions, wanting to learn. It was as if the boy had awakened something in his son that Richard thought he had lost forever. "Grandma Mary," Richard said, "I have a proposal to make, but I want you to think carefully before answering." Gabriel and Grandma Mary exchanged glances, clearly apprehensive about what was to come. "Lucas needs help with his studies, especially math and science. He's intelligent, but he's lost interest in school since the accident. Gabriel clearly has a talent for teaching and explaining. How about Gabriel helping Lucas with his studies a few times a week?" "I'd be happy to help," Gabriel said immediately. "You don't need to pay me anything." "Ah, but I would insist on paying," Richard said. "It would be a job like any other." Perhaps Gabriel could work fewer hours at the supermarket and spend more time on his studies, helping Lucas at the same time. Grandma Mary frowned, clearly suspicious. "Mr. Middleton, we don't want charity." "It's not charity," Richard insisted. "Lucas really needs a tutor. We've tried several private teachers, but he never got interested. With Gabriel, I can see it's different. It would be a real job with fair pay." Gabriel looked at his grandmother, his eyes shining with possibility. Being able to work less at the supermarket would mean more time to study. And if the pay was good, perhaps they could even afford a better health plan for Grandma Mary. "Grandma, maybe we should think about it," Gabriel said carefully. Grandma Mary studied Richard's face for a long moment, as if trying to read his true intentions. Finally, she sighed. "We'll talk more about it," she said. "But first, let me make that coffee I promised, and you'll have dinner here." "I won't take no for an answer." "Grandma, we don't have enough food for visitors," Gabriel whispered. "There's always a way to stretch food when it's for welcoming people well," Grandma Mary replied, already heading to the kitchen. Richard offered to help or contribute to the meal, but Grandma Mary was categorical in her refusal. Gabriel discreetly explained that it was a matter of hospitality for her, that offering what she had, even if it was little, was a way of showing respect for guests. During the simple but delicious dinner of rice, beans and scrambled eggs that Grandma Mary prepared, Richard once again observed the dynamic between grandmother and grandson. There was a deep love there, but also a complicity forged by difficulties. They understood each other with glances, anticipated each other's needs, forming a perfectly synchronized team. Lucas, for his part, was more talkative than Richard had seen him in months. He asked questions about life in the neighborhood, about Gabriel's school, about what it was like to work at the supermarket. It was as if he had discovered a completely new world and was fascinated by it. When they finished eating, Richard knew he could no longer postpone a more serious conversation about his proposal. But he also knew he would have to be very careful not to offend the pride of this family that had learned to value its independence above all else. 3 weeks passed since that stormy encounter, and Gabriel's life had changed in ways he never imagined possible. Twice a week after school, he would take 2 buses and cross the city to reach Richard and Lucas's apartment in the Elmwood Heights neighborhood. The apartment was unlike anything Gabriel knew. It occupied the entire floor of a modern building, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city. The decor was elegant but functional, adapted to Lucas's needs. There were no unnecessary steps, the doors were wider, and there was special equipment in the bathroom. Gabriel still felt a little out of place in that environment, but Lucas always welcomed him with genuine enthusiasm that quickly put him at ease. The boy had transformed since the incident in the park. Where there had once been apathy and isolation, now there was curiosity and energy. "Gabriel," Lucas shouted as soon as he heard the doorbell that Thursday. "Wait until you see the problem I solved by myself." Gabriel smiled as Marina, the caregiver, led him to Lucas's room, which had been transformed into a kind of study room. The same Marina who had been distracted on the phone during the storm now seemed determined to redeem herself, being attentive and present whenever Gabriel came for lessons. "Show me," Gabriel said, sitting in the chair next to Lucas's study desk. Lucas opened his math notebook and pointed to a series of quadratic equations he had solved. "Remember you taught me about completing the square? I used that method to solve all of these." Gabriel examined the calculations, impressed by their precision. "Lucas, this is perfect. You really understood the concept. It's because you explain it in a way that makes sense," Lucas said, beaming with pride. "The other teachers just rattled off formulas, but you show me why they work." Gabriel had developed his own teaching methodology based on practical problems and visual examples. He found that Lucas learned best when he could see the real-world application of mathematical concepts. To teach geometry, they used objects from the house. For algebra, they created problems involving everyday situations. "Today I brought something special," Gabriel said, pulling a small, basic robotics kit he had borrowed from school out of his backpack. "I thought we could combine math with engineering." Lucas's eyes lit up. Since the accident, he had lost interest in physical activities, but technology had always been his passion. "Really? We're going to build a robot?" "We'll start simple," Gabriel said, opening the kit. "But first, I need you to calculate the proportions and angles." Applied math. They spent the next 2 hours immersed in the project, Lucas solving equations to determine the movement of the gears, while Gabriel guided him through the concepts. The boy not only solved the problems with ease, but began to ask questions that showed a deep understanding of the principles involved. "Gabriel," Lucas said suddenly, stopping mid-assembly of a part, "have you ever thought about making a wheelchair that works better in mud and uneven terrain?" The question caught Gabriel by surprise. "Why do you ask?" "Because of what happened in the park. My chair got completely stuck in the mud, but if it had different wheels or some kind of system for difficult terrain..." Gabriel became thoughtful. It was an interesting idea, a real problem that could have an ingenious solution. "You know, that would be an incredible project. We'd have to study mechanics, materials, ergonomics. We could work on it together," Lucas said animatedly. "Like a long-term project. I can test the prototypes and you can do the calculations and design." At that moment, Richard appeared at the bedroom door. He had arrived home early from work to talk to Gabriel about something important. "How are studies going today?" he asked, noticing the robotics components scattered across the table. "Dad, look!" Lucas said, showing the small robot they had assembled. "Gabriel taught me how to calculate the angles to make it move in a straight line." Richard observed the simple device, but noticed the sophistication of the calculations in Lucas's notebook. In just a few weeks, Gabriel had achieved something that years of private tutors had not, awakening Lucas's genuine interest in studies. "Impressive," Richard said. "Gabriel, can I talk to you for a minute?" "In private?" Gabriel followed Richard to the living room, leaving Lucas to continue working on the robot. From Richard's tone of voice, he knew it was a serious conversation. "Gabriel," Richard began, "I wanted to talk about school. Any problem with class schedules?" "I can adjust." "No, it's not that," Richard interrupted. "It's about your school. Lucas told me you go to a public school, and that there are some problems there." Gabriel tensed. He had mentioned some difficulties to Lucas, such as the lack of adequate laboratories and outdated books, but he didn't expect it to reach Richard's ears. "They're not big problems," Gabriel said defensively. "I can study well anyway." "I know you can," Richard said, "but you have potential for much more. So I would like to offer you a scholarship to a private school, one of the best in Silverton." Gabriel felt his heart race. An elite private school? It was something he didn't even dare to dream of. But immediately worry took over. "Mr. Middleton, that would be very expensive." "It wouldn't be a financial problem for me," Richard said. "And it wouldn't be charity. It would be an investment. You are helping my son in a way I never thought possible. Lucas is happier, more interested in his studies, more confident. That's priceless." Gabriel remained silent, processing the offer. A private school would mean better teachers, equipped laboratories, more opportunities to enter a good university. But it would also mean being indebted to Richard, accepting a favor he might never be able to repay. "I need to talk to my grandmother," Gabriel finally said. "Of course," Richard agreed. "And Gabriel, I'd like to talk to her personally about this. Perhaps we could have dinner together this weekend. Me, Lucas, you and Grandma Mary." Gabriel nodded, but his mind was turbulent. He knew Grandma Mary would be torn between the pride of seeing opportunities arise for him and the concern of accepting favors that could compromise their independence. When they returned to the room, they found Lucas testing the robot on a small track he had created using books and notebooks. "It works!" Lucas shouted when the robot completed the course. "Gabriel, your calculations were perfect." "Yours too," Gabriel said, forcing a smile despite the mental turmoil. "I programmed the movements." Lucas then showed several sheets of paper where he had drawn ideas for the adapted wheelchair. They were rudimentary sketches, but they showed an impressive understanding of the mechanical challenges involved. "Look, I thought about using larger wheels at the back, with deep treads for traction. And here at the front, smaller wheels that can rotate 360 degrees for maneuvering in tight spaces," Lucas explained animatedly. Gabriel examined the drawings, genuinely impressed. "Lucas, these are really good ideas. Have you thought about what the steering system would be like?" "Not yet," Lucas admitted, "but I thought maybe we could research that. Like do a real science project." Richard observed the interaction of the two boys, seeing how they complemented each other. Gabriel brought technical knowledge and methodology, while Lucas contributed creativity and practical perspective. Together they were creating something neither of them could achieve alone. "You know," Richard said, "I know some people at the university who work with biomedical engineering. Maybe they could help you with this project." "Really?" Gabriel and Lucas asked almost simultaneously. "Really. But first, Gabriel, you need to be in a school that can offer the proper support for a project of this level." Gabriel understood the connection Richard was making. The private school offer wasn't just about education. It was about opening doors to bigger opportunities. During the ride home that night, Gabriel couldn't stop thinking. On one hand, he saw possibilities opening before him as he had never imagined. On the other, he felt the weight of responsibility and the worry of distancing himself from his roots. When he arrived home, he found Grandma Mary watching television, but he could tell by the way she was knitting that something was on her mind. "How was your day with the boy?" she asked. "Very good, Grandma. Lucas is making a lot of progress in his studies." Gabriel hesitated, then decided to be direct. "Mr. Middleton wants to talk to you. He has a proposal to make." Grandma Mary stopped knitting and looked at Gabriel with that penetrating gaze he knew so well. "What kind of proposal?" Gabriel told her about the scholarship offer, trying to keep the explanation objective and factual. He saw emotions pass across his grandmother's face: pride, concern, hope, fear. "And you want to accept?" she asked finally. "I don't know, Grandma. It's an incredible opportunity, but you're afraid to accept favors." "Yes," Gabriel admitted. "And I'm afraid of changing, of becoming someone different." Grandma Mary stood up and went to the window, looking out at the dark street. "Gabriel, when your parents passed away and you came to live with me, I had to make a difficult decision. I could try to protect you from all the difficulties in the world, or I could teach you to face them with dignity." Gabriel waited in silence, knowing she was getting to an important point. "I chose to teach you to be strong, independent, never to accept anything that would compromise your dignity. But perhaps I was too rigid. Sometimes accepting help isn't weakness. Sometimes it's wisdom." She turned to Gabriel, and he could see tears in her eyes. "You have a gift, my son, a good heart and a brilliant mind. If this opportunity can help you use those gifts to help other people, as you did with that boy, then perhaps we should at least listen to what Mr. Middleton has to say." The dinner at Richard's apartment took place on a rainy Saturday, as if the weather wanted to echo the day their lives intersected. Grandma Mary had spent the entire week choosing her best clothes and mentally preparing the arguments she would use to maintain the family's dignity during the conversation. Gabriel watched her as she got ready, noticing how her hands trembled slightly as she combed her gray hair. He knew his grandmother was nervous, but he also saw the determination in her eyes. Grandma Mary Sterling had never backed down from a challenge, and she wouldn't start now. When they arrived at the apartment, they were greeted by Richard and Lucas with warm hospitality that immediately put Grandma Mary more at ease. Lucas had insisted on showing all the projects he had developed with Gabriel, and his excitement was contagious. "Grandma Mary," Lucas said, using the affectionate nickname he had adopted, "look what Gabriel and I are planning." He showed the drawings of the adapted wheelchair, now much more elaborate and detailed. Gabriel had helped refine the concepts, adding engineering calculations and technical specifications. "It's for places where normal chairs can't go," Lucas explained animatedly, like that day in the park. "If I had a chair like this, I wouldn't have gotten stuck." Grandma Mary examined the drawings carefully, impressed by the sophistication of the project. "Did you two think of all this yourselves?" "Gabriel taught me how to do the calculations," Lucas said. "And I know what it's like to use a wheelchair every day, so I know what the problems are." Together we were able to think of solutions. During dinner, Richard delicately broached the main subject. "Grandma Mary, as Gabriel must have told you, I would like to offer him a scholarship to a private school. Not as a favor, but as recognition for his talent and the help he has given Lucas." Grandma Mary chewed slowly, thinking carefully before answering. "Mr. Middleton, do you have children?" "Yes, just Lucas." "Then you know what it's like to love a child more than your own life. Gabriel is all I have in the world. I raised him to be honest, hard-working, and independent. Accepting help, it's not easy for us." Richard nodded respectfully. "I understand perfectly. But allow me to explain why this isn't charity." Lucas was losing interest in his studies, becoming more and more isolated. In a few weeks with Gabriel, he started smiling again, became curious, started dreaming about the future. "This is a direct result of your grandson's talent and dedication." Gabriel observed the conversation in silence, feeling torn between gratitude for the opportunity and discomfort at being the center of the discussion. "Furthermore," Richard continued, "Gabriel has immense potential. With the right opportunities, he can make a difference in many people's lives. The school I have in mind has advanced laboratories, specialized teachers, exchange programs. It would be a solid foundation for a career in engineering." Grandma Mary looked at Gabriel, seeing the thinly veiled hope in his eyes. "And the conditions?" "No conditions," Richard said. "Gabriel would continue to help Lucas, because they've become true friends. The scholarship would be independent of that." "Grandma," Gabriel said softly, "maybe we can try. If it doesn't work out, I'll go back to my old school." Grandma Mary sighed deeply. "All right, but with some conditions of my own. Gabriel will continue working on weekends. He needs to stay grounded, remember where he came from. And if at any point we feel we are losing our dignity, we stop everything." Richard smiled, respecting the conditions. "Agreed. And Grandma Mary, would you like to visit the school before Gabriel starts, so you can feel at ease?" "I would, yes." 2 weeks later, Gabriel was walking through the corridors of St. Benedict's Academy, one of Silverton's most prestigious educational institutions. The corridors were wide and well lit, decorated with trophies and academic recognition plaques. The science laboratories were equipped with state-of-the-art technology, and the library had a collection that Gabriel had never imagined existed. But adapting was not easy. "Look who's here," muttered Philip Abbott, a classmate whose parents were entrepreneurs. When Gabriel entered the advanced math class, the scholarship kid from Willow Creek. Gabriel felt his face flush, but he kept calm. He had expected this kind of reaction. The socio-economic difference between him and most of the students was obvious, from his less-than-new uniform to the simple backpack he carried. The teacher, Dr. Henry Castle, entered the room and announced that they would be having a complex problem-solving competition. Gabriel focused on the exercises, applying the methods he had developed during his lessons with Lucas. When time ran out, Dr. Castle collected the papers and quickly graded them. "Gabriel Sterling," he announced, "congratulations. You had the best performance in the class." Philip and his friends exchanged glances of surprise and irritation. Gabriel had not only solved all the problems correctly, but had used more elegant and efficient methods than the rest of the class. "Beginner's luck," Philip muttered. But as the weeks passed, it became clear it wasn't luck. Gabriel consistently excelled in math, physics, and chemistry. His teachers began to notice not only his technical competence, but his ability to explain complex concepts simply. However, Dr. Castle developed an increasingly hostile attitude towards Gabriel. During classes, he made subtle comments about students who don't understand the school's tradition, and publicly questioned Gabriel's answers, even when they were correct. "Sterling," Dr. Castle said one afternoon, "your methodology is interesting. Where did you learn that?" "In public school." The question was asked with a tone that made it clear it was not a compliment. Gabriel felt all eyes in the class turn to him. "I learned it myself, Professor. And by teaching other students." Well, here we follow more traditional methods. Perhaps you should adapt to our standards." Gabriel knew he was being tested, not just academically, but socially. Some teachers welcomed him, impressed by his dedication and talent. Others, like Dr. Castle, seemed resentful of his presence. But it was during a science project that Gabriel truly found his place. The physics teacher, Dr. Robert Stone, had proposed that students work in groups to develop a technological innovation. Gabriel immediately thought of the wheelchair project he had developed with Lucas. He asked permission to work with an external partner and presented the drawings and calculations they had created. Dr. Stone examined the project with growing interest. "Gabriel, this is impressive. The engineering is solid, and the practical application is brilliant. Did you really develop this yourself?" "With a friend," Gabriel explained. "He uses a wheelchair and identified the problems. I helped with the calculations and design. I'd like to present this project to a colleague of mine at Silverton University who works with biomedical engineering. Would you mind?" Gabriel felt his heart race. "Silverton University? Of course, Professor. It would be an honor." Philip, who was listening to the conversation, couldn't hold back. "Professor, isn't it a bit strange for a scholarship student to be developing projects with people outside the school? How do we know the work is really his?" Dr. Stone looked at Philip with disapproval. "What matters is the quality of the work and the potential for impact, not the student's financial situation." But Philip's comment had planted a seed of doubt in the minds of some classmates. Gabriel noticed the whispers and glances when he walked through the corridors. That afternoon, when he went to Lucas's house for their regular lesson, he was visibly disheartened. Lucas noticed immediately. "Did something happen at the new school?" Lucas asked. Gabriel told him about Philip's comments and Dr. Castle's hostile attitude. Lucas listened in silence, growing increasingly irritated. "They're idiots," Lucas finally said. "They're jealous because you're smarter than them. And you were born into a family that doesn't have money. That's not your fault. Sometimes I wonder if it wouldn't be better to go back to my old school," Gabriel admitted. "I felt at home there." "Gabriel," Lucas said seriously, "do you remember what you told me on the first day of class? That math is like a puzzle, and it doesn't matter what pieces you have at the beginning. What matters is how you organize them." Gabriel nodded. "It's the same thing. It doesn't matter where you came from. What matters is what you do with the opportunities you have. And you have an incredible talent. Don't let those jerks take that away from you." Gabriel smiled, feeling better. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned it from my tutor," Lucas said, smiling back. That night, Gabriel returned home determined not to give up. He found Grandma Mary waiting for him in the living room, knitting. "How was your day, my son?" Gabriel told her about the challenges, but also about the professor's interest in the wheelchair and the possibility of presenting the project at Silverton University. "Grandma, sometimes people make me feel like I don't belong there." Grandma Mary stopped knitting and looked at Gabriel with that firm gaze he knew so well. "Gabriel, do you want to know where you belong? You belong wherever you are capable of making a difference. If there are people in that school who don't like you because of where you were born, that's their problem. You're not there to make friends. You're there to learn and grow." She stood up and went to the shelf where she kept photos of Gabriel receiving certificates at his old school. "Look at these photos. In each one you were exceeding expectations, being better than they said you could be. This new school is just another step on the ladder. Climb it and keep climbing." Gabriel hugged his grandmother, feeling strengthened by her words. "Thank you, Grandma, for always believing in me. I'll always believe, my son, because I know who you are inside, and I know that one day the whole world will know too." The following Monday, Gabriel returned to St. Benedict's Academy with renewed determination. When Dr. Castle made another sarcastic comment about unconventional methods, Gabriel remained calm and continued to demonstrate his solution on the board. And when Philip tried again to question the legitimacy of the wheelchair project, Gabriel simply said, "If you want, I can teach you the calculations. That way you can personally verify if the work is mine or not." The offer caught Philip by surprise, and he couldn't respond. Some classmates laughed, and Gabriel realized he was starting to earn respect, not because of his background, but because of his competence and dignity in the face of provocation. The path would still be long and full of challenges, but Gabriel was learning that sometimes the best answer to prejudice is not anger, but excellence. 2 weeks after the conversation with Dr. Stone, Gabriel received an invitation that would change everything. The physics professor had arranged a meeting at Silverton University with Dr. Amanda Foster, one of the country's leading researchers in biomedical engineering. Gabriel was nervous when he arrived at the Silverton University campus, accompanied by Dr. Stone. The university environment impressed him with its grandeur and complexity. Modern laboratories, immense libraries, students and professors engaged in advanced academic discussions. It was a world he had always dreamed of being a part of, but which seemed distant from his reality. Dr. Amanda Foster was a middle-aged woman, with curly hair pulled back in a practical bun and penetrating eyes behind eyeglasses. She welcomed Gabriel into her laboratory, where various prototypes of medical devices were in development. "So you're Gabriel," she said, examining the drawings and calculations he had brought. "Dr. Stone told me about your project. I must say I'm impressed." Gabriel felt his face flush. "Thank you, Doctor. But I did this with a friend. The idea wasn't just mine." "Ah, yes. Lucas, isn't it? The boy in the wheelchair. Dr. Stone told me your story." She continued examining the documents. "You know, Gabriel, what impresses me most isn't just the calculations, which are correct and well-founded. It's the approach. You identified a real problem, understood the user's needs, and developed a practical solution." She stood up and went to a shelf where there were several prototypes. Many researchers here at the university develop incredible technologies, but sometimes they forget to think about the end user. You did the opposite. You started with the user and developed the technology to meet their needs. "It's because Lucas lives it every day," Gabriel explained. "He knows what the real problems are." "Exactly. And that's a lesson many engineers take years to learn." Dr. Amanda returned to the table and opened a notebook. "Gabriel, I'd like to make a proposal. How about we develop a functional prototype of your project?" Gabriel almost fell out of his chair. "Seriously? A real prototype? Seriously? I have a budget for research and development, and I believe this project has not only academic, but commercial potential. If it works well, it can help thousands of people." Dr. Stone smiled, clearly proud of his student. "Gabriel, this is a unique opportunity. Dr. Amanda rarely agrees to work with high school students." "But I don't accept just any student," Dr. Amanda said. "I accept those who show not only technical talent, but also social vision. Gabriel, you would have to come here twice a week after school. The work would be intense, but you would learn a lot." Gabriel thought quickly. "Twice a week at Silverton University, twice a week with Lucas, school in the morning, and work at the supermarket on weekends. It would be tough, but it was a unique opportunity." "I accept," he said without hesitation. "Great, and Gabriel, there's one condition. Lucas needs to be involved in the project. He will be our official user consultant. We need him to test the prototypes and give us constant feedback." Gabriel smiled, imagining how excited Lucas would be. "I'm sure he'll love it." When Gabriel told Lucas the news that afternoon, the boy was so excited he almost jumped out of his wheelchair. "Gabriel, we're going to work at a real university, with real researchers." Lucas was beaming. "My dad is going to freak out when he finds out." Indeed, when Richard heard the news, his reaction was one of pride mixed with something deeper. He was watching Gabriel transform from a hard-working boy into a young man with the potential to change the world, and it moved him in ways he hadn't expected. "Gabriel," Richard said that night, as the boy was getting ready to leave, "can I talk to you for a minute?" They went to Richard's office, an elegant room with shelves full of books on business and technology. "I wanted to tell you something," Richard began, seeming hesitant. "Since you came into our lives, Lucas has changed completely." He started smiling again, having hope, dreaming about the future. "And Richard stopped, searching for the right words. "I lost my wife 3 years ago, cancer. Since then, it's just been me and Lucas, and I wasn't coping well with it. I worked too much. I distanced myself from him. I didn't know how to help him overcome the trauma of the accident." Gabriel listened in silence, feeling the pain in Richard's voice. "You didn't just save Lucas from that storm. You saved us from ourselves. You gave me my son back." Mr. Middleton, let me finish, Richard interrupted gently. Gabriel, you've become like a second son to me. And I know that might sound strange considering how we met, but I would like to be more than just your student's father. Gabriel didn't know what to say. Since he was little, he had dreamed of having a present father figure. But he also felt intense loyalty to Grandma Mary, who had sacrificed everything for him. I don't want to replace anyone in your life, Richard continued. Grandma Mary is an extraordinary woman, and you're lucky to have her. But if you allow it, I'd like to be a constant presence, someone you can turn to when you need to. I would like that, Gabriel said, his voice choked with emotion. There's one more thing, Richard said. I'm thinking of creating a foundation, focused on developing assistive technologies for people with disabilities. And I'd like you and Lucas to be the foundation's first young ambassadors. Gabriel could barely process everything. A foundation? Really? Really? The wheelchair project would be our first product. If it works out, we can develop other technologies, help more people. That night, during the ride home, Gabriel was lost in thought. His life had changed so drastically in a few months that sometimes he had to stop to check if he wasn't dreaming. When he arrived home, he found Grandma Mary waiting for him with a serious expression. Gabriel, we need to talk. He sat beside her on the sofa, noticing that there were papers scattered on the coffee table. What happened, Grandma? Today Mr. Middleton came here, Grandma Mary said. He told me about the university, about the foundation he wants to create. Gabriel tensed. Did he do something wrong? No, my son. On the contrary, Grandma Mary smiled. He asked for my permission. Permission for what? To legally adopt you when you turn 18. Gabriel felt the world spin around him. Adopt. But Grandma... Listen first, Grandma Mary said, raising her hand. He doesn't want to take you away from me. He wants to give you opportunities I could never give. And he promises there will always be a place for me in your lives. Gabriel was in shock. What did you say? I said it's your decision. But Gabriel, that man truly loves you, and it's not out of pity or obligation. It's because he sees in you the son he always wanted to have alongside Lucas. Gabriel felt tears well up in his eyes. Grandma, I'll never abandon you. You're my family. And I always will be, Grandma Mary said, hugging him. But families grow, my son. Sometimes the best families are the ones we choose, not just the ones we're born into. Over the following weeks, Gabriel divided his attention between St. Benedict's Academy, the project at Silverton University, and tutoring sessions with Lucas. The wheelchair prototype was taking shape, and Dr. Amanda was impressed with the progress. Gabriel, she said one day, have you ever thought about majoring in biomedical engineering at Silverton University? I've always dreamed of studying here, Gabriel admitted, but I don't know if I'd be able to afford it. With your academic record and this project, I'm sure you could get a full scholarship, and I can write a letter of recommendation. At school, things were also improving. Gabriel had formed a small group of friends who valued his talent more than his background. Philip still made occasional comments, but he had lost the support of most of the class. Dr. Castle, however, remained hostile. During a particularly tense class, he publicly questioned the legitimacy of the project at Silverton University. Sterling, I'm sure working at a university is educational, but I hope you don't neglect the regular curriculum because of these extracurricular activities. Gabriel remained calm. Professor, the project at Silverton University is teaching me practical applications of the concepts we learn here. If anything, it's reinforcing my learning. We'll see when college entrance exam season comes. But it was Philip who crossed the line. During a break, he approached Gabriel with a malicious expression. Gabriel, everyone knows you only got these opportunities because you're a charity case. Richard feels sorry for you. The professor at Silverton University wants to feel good helping a kid from the projects, and even the school gets points for having a scholarship student who excels. Gabriel felt anger rise, but remembered Grandma Mary's words about maintaining dignity. Philip, he said calmly, if you spend so much time thinking about me, maybe you should use that energy to improve your own grades. Some classmates who were listening laughed, and Philip turned red with anger. You think you're better than us? That you can compete on equal footing? I don't think I'm better than anyone, Gabriel replied. I just work hard and take advantage of the opportunities I have. Well then, Philip said with a vengeful expression. "We'll see how long those opportunities last when people find out who you really are." Gabriel didn't understand the threat at the time, but he would soon discover that Philip was planning something that could destroy everything he had built. Philip's threat materialized on a sunny Tuesday in November, exactly 6 months after the rescue in the park. Gabriel was in the Silverton University lab with Dr. Amanda, testing the most advanced version of the wheelchair prototype, when his phone rang insistently. It was Richard, and his voice was altered in a way Gabriel had never heard before. "Gabriel, I need you to come home immediately. Something serious has happened." "What's wrong? Is Lucas okay?" "Lucas is fine, but it's better we talk in person. I'm sending my driver to pick you up." Gabriel said goodbye to Dr. Amanda, promising to explain later, and waited for the driver with a heavy heart. During the entire ride to Richard's apartment, he tried to imagine what could have happened to make Richard so upset. When he arrived, he found Richard, Lucas, and an elegant man in a suit he didn't know sitting in the living room. The atmosphere was tense and Lucas seemed to have been crying. "Gabriel," Richard said, standing up, "this is Dr. Maurice Anderson, my lawyer." Gabriel greeted the lawyer, but his attention was focused on Lucas, who avoided his gaze. "What happened?" Gabriel asked. Richard sighed deeply before answering. "Someone contacted Child Protective Services, alleging that you are being exploited, that our family is taking advantage of a minor in a vulnerable situation." Gabriel felt his blood run cold. "What do you mean?" Dr. Maurice stepped forward. "Gabriel, someone filed a formal complaint alleging that you are working excessively, that you are being forced to accept responsibilities inappropriate for your age, and that there are suspicions your grandmother is being coerced into accepting favors in exchange for your services." "That's ridiculous," Gabriel exploded. "I chose all of this." "We know," Richard said, "but the complaint was very well crafted. Whoever did this knows details about our situation that are not public." Gabriel immediately thought of Philip, but he had no proof. "What does this mean?" "It means," Dr. Maurice continued, "that there will be an official investigation. A social worker will come to interview you, your grandmother, and the Middleton family. They will assess whether you are being harmed in any way." Lucas finally looked at Gabriel, his eyes red from crying. "Gabriel, what if they forbid you from coming here? What if we can't work on the project together anymore?" Gabriel sat beside Lucas, trying to process everything. "That won't happen. We'll explain everything to them." "Gabriel," Richard said carefully, "there's one more thing. The complaint specifically questions the legitimacy of the Silverton University project and the adoption proposal. It alleges they are being used to manipulate you." Gabriel felt a deep anger growing within him. Someone was trying to destroy everything he had built, all the opportunities he had earned through hard work and dedication. "I know who did this," Gabriel said through gritted teeth. "Who?" Richard asked. Gabriel told him about Philip and his threats, about the hostility he faced at school for being a scholarship student. Dr. Maurice took notes as he spoke. "Even if it's true," the lawyer said, "we can't prove it. And now our priority is to prepare a solid defense for the investigation." That afternoon, Gabriel returned home with a heavy heart. He found Grandma Mary in the kitchen, preparing dinner with mechanical movements. It was obvious that she had also been informed about the situation. "Grandma, are you okay?" Grandma Mary turned, and Gabriel could see that she had been crying, although she tried to hide it. "I am, my son. Just worried." Gabriel hugged her. "Grandma, we didn't do anything wrong. I chose all of this. No one forced me to do anything." "I know, Gabriel. But sometimes the truth isn't enough when there are people determined to cause trouble." During dinner, they talked about what to expect from the investigation. Gabriel told her about the project at Silverton University, about the progress he had made, about how fulfilled he felt helping Lucas and developing technology that could help other people. "Gabriel," Grandma Mary said, "no matter what happens, you must continue to be who you are. Don't let these people change your heart." The next morning, when Gabriel arrived at school, he noticed that something had changed. Some classmates looked at him with curiosity, others with pity. Philip was in the center of a group, speaking in a low voice, but stopped when he saw Gabriel approach. "Gabriel," Philip said with false concern, "I heard you're having some problems. I hope everything works out well." Gabriel stared directly at him. "Philip, if you have something to tell me, say it directly." "Me? I have nothing to say. I just think sometimes people take advantage of delicate situations." Dr. Stone approached before Gabriel could respond. "Gabriel, can I talk to you?" They went to the teacher's lounge where Dr. Stone closed the door. "Gabriel, Dr. Amanda called me. She heard about the investigation. I want you to know that both she and I are willing to testify about your character and competence." "Professor, will the project have to stop?" "For now, yes. Until the investigation is concluded, it's better to avoid any situation that could be misinterpreted." Gabriel felt his world crumbling. In a single anonymous complaint, everything he had worked for was being questioned. During lunch, Gabriel sat alone, lost in thought. It was then that Marina, Lucas's caregiver, approached him. "Gabriel, can I sit down?" He nodded, surprised. Marina rarely spoke to him beyond basic greetings. "I wanted to tell you something," she began, clearly nervous. "About that day in the park." Gabriel paid attention. "I was on the phone arguing with my ex-husband about child support. I was so angry that I didn't pay attention when the rain got worse. When Mr. Middleton arrived and couldn't find Lucas in the agreed spot, I lied. I said a gust of wind had carried Lucas away, that it wasn't my fault." Gabriel listened in silence. "But the truth is I was negligent. And you saved Lucas from the consequences of my irresponsibility." Marina wiped away a tear. "Since then, I've been trying to be a better caregiver, a better person. Because seeing what you did, how you dedicated yourself to helping Lucas, I realized the kind of person I wanted to be." "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I heard someone is questioning your intentions, suggesting you're taking advantage of the Middleton family. And I can't stay silent knowing the truth." Marina stood up. "Gabriel, I will testify in the investigation. I will tell them what really happened in the park, and how you changed not only Lucas's life but mine too." That afternoon, Gabriel went to Lucas's house for what might be their last lesson. He found the boy in the living room, idly fiddling with the wheelchair prototype they had built. "Lucas, how are you?" "Scared," Lucas admitted. "Gabriel, what if they say you can't come here anymore? What if we can never work together again?" Gabriel sat beside him. "Lucas, no matter what happens with the investigation, our friendship won't change. You're like a brother to me." "To me too," Lucas said, his voice choked. "Gabriel, there's something I never told you." "What?" "Before you came along, I was thinking about giving up on everything. I thought my life had no meaning after the accident, but when you saved me that day, you didn't just save my body. You saved my soul." Gabriel felt tears in his eyes. "Lucas, you saved me too. You gave me a family. You made me believe I could be more than circumstances allowed." Richard appeared at the living room door. "Gabriel, the social worker has arrived. She wants to talk to us." The social worker, Dr. Carla Maxwell, was a middle-aged woman with a penetrating but not hostile gaze. For 2 hours, she asked detailed questions about the relationship between Gabriel and the Middleton family, about the conditions of the scholarship, about the project at Silverton University. Gabriel answered all questions honestly, explaining how he had met Lucas, how the opportunity to teach him had arisen, how the wheelchair project had developed. "Gabriel," Dr. Carla said finally, "do you feel pressured to accept these opportunities? Do you feel obligated to maintain this relationship out of gratitude?" "No, ma'am," Gabriel replied firmly. "I feel lucky. Mr. Middleton and Lucas have become my family, not out of obligation, but by choice, out of love." Lucas held Gabriel's hand. "Doctor, can I say something?" "Of course, Lucas." "Gabriel taught me that math is like a puzzle. Amurti taught me something more important, that people are also like puzzles. Sometimes you find pieces that fit perfectly with yours, even if they come from different boxes." Dr. Carla smiled for the first time since she arrived. "That's a very mature observation, Lucas. Gabriel taught me to think that way." When the social worker left, Richard hugged Gabriel. "Now we wait. Dr. Anderson said the decision should be out in 2 weeks. Gabriel nodded, but inside he was in turmoil. 2 weeks that would determine whether everything he had fought for would continue to exist or crumble because of the envy and malice of someone who couldn't accept his success. That night, when he arrived home, Gabriel found Grandma Mary sitting on the porch, looking at the stars. "Grandma, can't you sleep?" "No, my son." "I was thinking." Gabriel sat beside her. About what? About how sometimes life puts us through storms that seem impossible to survive. But after the storm, there always comes calm. Gabriel looked at the starry sky. Do you think we'll get through this? I know we will, Grandma Mary said, holding his hand, because we have something those bad people will never understand. What? True love. And true love always wins in the end. The investigation's result arrived on a December morning, exactly 1 year after the rescue in the park. Gabriel was in the kitchen, helping Grandma Mary prepare coffee when the phone rang. It was Richard, and his voice overflowed with relief and joy. Gabriel, the investigation has been dismissed. Dr. Carla concluded that there is no evidence of exploitation or coercion. On the contrary, her report highlighted how beneficial our relationship is for everyone involved. Gabriel felt his legs go weak. Seriously? It's really over? It's over. And there's more. Dr. Anderson found out who made the complaint. It was Philip Abbott. Apparently, he convinced his parents to file the complaint, alleging you were gaining unfair advantages at school. Gabriel felt no anger, only relief. And now? Now we return to normal. Dr. Amanda has already been informed, and you can resume the project at Silverton University. And, Gabriel, there's something I want to ask you personally. Can you come here this afternoon? When Gabriel arrived at the apartment that afternoon, he found not only Richard and Lucas, but also Dr. Amanda, Dr. Stone, Marina, and to his surprise, Grandma Mary. Grandma, what are you doing here? Mr. Middleton brought me, she said with a mysterious smile. He said he had something important to tell us. Richard stood up, clearly emotional. Gabriel, Grandma Mary, I brought you here because I want to do this officially, in front of all the people who are important in our lives. He went to Gabriel and knelt, pulling a small envelope from his pocket. Gabriel Sterling, I would like to adopt you as my son, not to replace the love you have for Grandma Mary, but to add more love to your life. I want you to be officially my son and Lucas's brother. Gabriel felt tears well up in his eyes. Mr. Middleton, just Richard now. Or Dad, if you like. Gabriel looked at Grandma Mary, who was crying with emotion. She nodded encouragingly. I accept, Gabriel said, his voice choked. I accept to be your son. Richard stood up and hugged Gabriel, followed by Lucas, who got out of his wheelchair with his father's help to join the family hug. And that's not all, Richard said when they separated. Gabriel, remember the foundation I mentioned? It's already officially registered. It's called the Gabriel Lucas Foundation, named after both of you. Dr. Amanda stepped forward. Gabriel, the wheelchair prototype was finished last week. The tests were incredible. The chair can navigate terrains that conventional chairs couldn't even dream of. She showed photos and videos on her tablet, demonstrating the chair working on different types of terrain: mud, sand, tall grass, uneven stones. The foundation has already received requests from hospitals and rehabilitation centers across the United States, Dr. Amanda continued. And there's international interest, too. Lucas was beaming. Gabriel, we really did it. We made something that will help real people. Dr. Stone approached. Gabriel, there's one more thing. With all this repercussion, Silverton University decided to offer you a full scholarship for biomedical engineering. And it's not just undergraduate. It's a special program that includes master's and doctorate, if you wish. Gabriel could barely process everything. In 1 year, his life had changed in ways he had never imagined possible. But I still want to continue helping at the supermarket on weekends, Gabriel said. I don't want to forget where I came from. And you shouldn't forget, Grandma Mary said, standing up and going to him. Gabriel, I am so proud of you that my heart can barely contain it. You proved that kindness and talent can change the world. Richard opened a folder that was on the table. Gabriel, there's one more surprise. The foundation bought a house in the Pine Ridge neighborhood. It's our new home, our new family home. It has a room for you, one for Lucas, a special suite for Grandma Mary, and a workshop where you can continue developing projects. A house for all of us? Gabriel asked, incredulous. A home for our family, Richard confirmed. And Grandma Mary, I would like you to consider retiring. The foundation would like to hire you as our community outreach coordinator. You know the community's needs better than anyone. Grandma Mary was moved. Mr. Middleton, you don't have to. I do. Gabriel taught me that family isn't just about blood. It's about choosing to take care of each other. And you are family now. Marina approached shyly. Gabriel, I wanted to thank you for inspiring me to be a better person. The foundation invited me to be the special care coordinator, and I accepted. I want to help other children like Lucas. In the following months, the new family settled into a happy and productive routine. Gabriel moved into the new house, along with Grandma Mary, maintaining his studies at St. Benedict's Academy while working at the foundation and preparing for college. Dr. Castle had been transferred to another school after several complaints from other students, and Philip had moved to a school in another state when his parents found out about the false complaint. The adapted wheelchair, named Hope Chair, was being produced on a small scale and distributed free of charge to low-income families through the foundation. Lucas became the official spokesperson for the project, traveling to hospitals and rehabilitation centers to tell his story and demonstrate the product. Gabriel, in turn, developed other projects at the foundation: communication devices for people with speech difficulties, more accessible prosthetics, and educational technologies for children with disabilities. His high school graduation day was special. Gabriel was chosen as the class valedictorian, and his speech moved the entire audience. A year and a half ago, Gabriel said into the microphone, I was just a boy working in a supermarket and dreaming of a better future. Today I understand that our dreams are just the beginning. What truly matters is how we use our talents to help other people achieve their dreams as well. In the audience, Grandma Mary wept with pride beside Richard and Lucas. Dr. Amanda and Dr. Stone applauded enthusiastically. I learned that family is not defined solely by genes, but by love, dedication, and choice. I learned that opportunities are gifts that we should share, not hoard. And I learned that sometimes helping one person can change not only their life, but ours too. Gabriel paused for a moment, looking at Lucas in the front row. A year and a half ago, I saved a friend who was stuck in the mud. But the truth is, he saved me too. He saved me from mediocrity, from conformity, from the idea that I had to accept the limitations others placed upon me. After the ceremony, the family gathered for a special dinner. Richard raised a toast. To Gabriel, who taught us that heroes don't wear capes. They wear generous hearts and brilliant minds. 3 years later, Gabriel graduated with honors in biomedical engineering from Silverton University. The Gabriel Lucas Foundation had become a national benchmark in assistive technologies, and products developed by Gabriel and Lucas were helping thousands of people. On his college graduation day, Gabriel and Lucas returned to Willowbrook Park. They sat on the same bench where everything had begun, now as official brothers and business partners. Gabriel, Lucas said, "Do you remember what I told you that first day? That you saw me when no one else did? I remember. Well, today I want to say something different. Today, the whole world sees you, and not only sees you, but admires you, respects you, loves you." Gabriel smiled, watching families playing in the park. "Lucas, do you want to know a secret?" "What?" "I still see that 14-year-old boy who worked in the supermarket and dreamed of making a difference. The difference is that now I know he always had the power to change the world. He just needed someone to believe in him. And I still see that boy in the wheelchair who thought his life was over, until someone showed me it was just beginning." They fell silent for a moment, appreciating the beauty of the sunny day. "Gabriel," Lucas said suddenly, "look over there." Gabriel followed Lucas's gaze and saw a child with crutches who had fallen on the playground and was crying while other children ran away. Without hesitation, they both stood up and went to help. "Hey, are you okay?" Gabriel asked, kneeling beside the girl. "I fell and no one wants to play with me," the child sobbed. Lucas approached in his chair. "You know what? My brother here taught me that being different isn't a problem. It's a superpower. Do you want me to show you some cool tricks that only special people like us can do?" The girl's eyes lit up and Gabriel smiled, seeing the magic happen once again. Later that day, as they were returning home, Gabriel reflected on how his life had changed. From a teenager struggling to survive, he had become a young engineer with a mission to improve the lives of other people. He had a family that loved him unconditionally, a promising career, and the certainty that he was making a difference in the world. But most importantly, he had never lost the essence of who he was. someone who saw people others ignored, someone who reached out to help, someone who believed that small acts of kindness could generate great transformations. On the night of his graduation, during the celebratory dinner, Richard made a final toast. To Gabriel, who taught us that heroes are not born made, they are forged in storms, tempered by adversity, and purified by love. Gabriel looked around the table, seeing the faces of the people he had chosen as family: Richard, Lucas, Grandma Mary, Dr. Amanda, Dr. Stone, Marina, and so many others who had joined them along the journey. Actually, Gabriel said, raising his glass, I'd like to make a toast too. To all of you, who taught me that life isn't about what we receive but about what we give. And that sometimes, when we reach out to save someone, it is we who end up being saved. Years later, when Gabriel was already a renowned biomedical engineer and the Gabriel Lucas Foundation had become an international organization, he still returned regularly to Willowbrook Park, not just to remember where he had started, but to look for other people who needed to be seen, other opportunities to make a difference. Because Gabriel had learned that being a hero is not about grand gestures or public recognition. It's about choosing to see when others don't, acting when others don't, and loving when others don't. It's about understanding that every life we touch has the potential to touch countless other lives, creating waves of kindness that spread throughout the world. And every time he saw someone reaching out to help a person in need, Gabriel smiled, knowing that the storm that day in the park had planted seeds of compassion that would continue to germinate for generations. The story of Gabriel and Lucas proves that it doesn't matter where we come from or what challenges we face. What matters is the choice we make every day, the choice to see, the choice to act, the choice to love, and that sometimes a single act of kindness in the midst of a storm can change not just 2 lives, but the entire world. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Gabriel and Lucas has touched your hearts as it has touched ours. This narrative reminds us that each of us has the power to be a hero in someone's life, that family is a choice of the heart, and that genuine kindness always finds a way to be rewarded. If this story has inspired you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like the video. Share your own experiences of kindness and overcoming in the comments. We have a special playlist with equally moving stories waiting for you. Click here to discover more narratives that celebrate the best of human nature. Every day we bring new stories that explore the complexity of life, the power of love, and the magic of human connections. Don't miss our upcoming content, and remember, you too can be the light in someone's storm. Until the next story.